Matt, can I just, and you've worked in the sector and you've worked in family violence and you're a family violence researcher. When you met Russ and he started to share this story with you, what was some of the things that were coming up for you as you were sort of listening to this, not just as his partner, but also as a researcher and a worker in the field?
Well, I actually hadn't done a lot of work in the space at that time. It's sort of as we've got more involved in the show and the show came to us, we were at Adelaide Fringe watching just a series of cabarets, and we actually met. I was Rusty's manager for a while, and he was a singer. And then we kind of eventually acknowledged, oh wait, I think we're in love, so we'll just do that instead and combine all the things. But it was actually through the process of putting the show together, we were in Adelaide, we'd seen all these things, and I'd always got some advice when I was in school studying performance art that write about a topic that that you have a unique insight into that other people don't. And so we said, as weird as it sounds, Russ, you're an amazing singer. You have this really amazing story that hasn't been told. Why don't we turn it into a musical cabaret? That sounds so insane that it's either going to work or be terrible. Luckily, I think we made it work. But so it was through that process over the last 5 years that, we've been a part of some of the earlier conversations in this space. We did the show up in New South Wales with the ACON Anti-Violence Project up there. And New South Wales has had a lot more time in the sector doing stuff specific towards LGBTI victims. When we moved down here to Victoria, we realized that the sector here was a decade behind, really, but where pretty much the rest of the world is. And so, there was some services doing some good work, but it had never been drawn together in the same way that the interagency up there had. So, then the Royal Commission happened, and all of a sudden everything was on the table, and the attention was drawn towards LGBTI as priority victims for the very first time. And things have just skyrocketed since there.
How much of this show is about coming to the table also, as opposed to, or perhaps in addition to, your love for music and performing and cabaret and...
Look, it's all part and parcel. Performance was what I'd done and I'd loved for many years. The subject matter was something that we both believe just needs to be discussed. Cabaret, well, cabaret has always had has always been something where you take something out of the ordinary, something political, something that needs to be discussed that's not discussed in the general populace, and you put it on stage and you build something out of that. So this was the perfect platform for us to discuss a subject that people just don't want to talk about.
And I think for us, we'd seen some really good education campaigns put out in New South Wales, and posters and educational videos and things going out into the space. And what we think was missing and still is missing is, and what we provide is a real emotional connection to not only what these things look like, but what they feel like on the inside. And I think that's what the show does really successfully. Is you join Russell on the story, it smashes the myths that the victim is somehow weak, or choosing the situation, or why don't you just get on with it and go and leave. And it really shows you how when you're in the middle of these situations, you can't see the woods from the trees anymore. And the abuse tactics that are used on you belittle your self-esteem to the point where you don't see a doorway out, and you start to believe that this is what you deserve. And so I think with music and with the true personal story, you can't deny. Most people, when we say we're doing this show about queer domestic violence, they go, that happens to queers? We never knew that. I've never thought of that. You can't deny it when it's a big, hairy bear guy standing up there going, I was a victim. It's real.
With the emotional connection that this show aims to do, is to connect with the audience emotionally. We're talking about some pretty grim experiences and some pretty intense feelings.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Is that the intention, to invite the audience into that space where they go? Well, you said they go on that journey with Russ. Do they go to those places with you?
If I'm doing it well, if I'm performing well, not performing is a really bad word. If I'm taking people with me and doing it well, then they're experiencing all the things that I experience.
Why do you want us to go there with you, Russ?
Because that's the best way that you will understand. And you know, the purpose of this show is to create understanding. It is a journey, and it's a show where people need to feel the things that I felt and that other victims or survivors of domestic violence feel.
Because Russ, I'm thinking you said earlier that you kept this to yourself. You didn't talk to anybody. We in the queer community, we don't talk to anyone. And it's just interesting. So I wonder if taking us to that place with you, getting very close to that place, means that you're not actually alone. If the audience sort of being there with you, does that also mean that we're there with you? Is there somehow something cathartic in there for you?
No. In all honesty, this is not the sort of show that you can do unless you're healed. I can't use this as a vessel to assist my healing process, because it would destroy me. I have to go back to those places every single night that I do the show to be able to take the audience there with me, and that's not something that you can do if you're not healed.
Right.
But it's a really important journey for people to go on. Because it creates understanding, and understanding is what we're really trying to have people be to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what we know is that a lot of service providers or professionals who have an obligation to screen for domestic violence, there's cases that we know of that people have point blank described very clear domestic violence, with children involved, abuse of a partner and the children at once. And because it was two women, it just was not clocked as DV, and even though there were multiple disclosures. And so what we know is also that's happening to people's family and in their friends and in their workplaces, and really clear stuff is people are seeing it. And because it's not a man and a woman, we don't have the same triggers to go, wait a minute, that's not okay. We don't have 2 decades of awareness raising that has helped Australia move from where it was in the 70s, or 60s, where it was, okay, of course it's fine for a man to beat his wife. We've certainly moved on from that, but we haven't had the same dialogue around LGBTI domestic violence.
If you've heard something in our conversation today that makes you think perhaps you're using control or abuse in your relationship, you can contact VAC at vac.org.au or QLife.
If in our conversation today it's made you think about anyone maybe a colleague or a friend or a family member even, that this sounds like could be happening in their relationship, please head to qlife.org and speak to a volunteer counsellor about what you might be able to do to help that person. Or you can go to anothercloset.com.au and have a look at the information there for how bystanders can help someone experiencing violence.
If anything in our conversation today has made you realise that maybe you're in a domestic violent relationship, contact Queerspace. They have a specialist LGBTI domestic violence support worker available to talk to you today. Alternatively, call QLife and talk to a volunteer counsellor.